Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. Great venues, new venue, Warrenton Athletic Complex, turf fields. It helps with those what we call rainouts. Nobody likes rain. Nobody wants rain. We want to play. So Game 7 Baseball right there. Great tournaments happening out there. We're going to be, our first one out there is, I believe that's the Spring Showdown. That will be in early April. So we're looking forward to being out there with the kids, getting the interviews, doing the stuff. So make sure you're signed up. Check out Game7Baseball.com. Register your team. We'll see you at the ballpark. All right, today on the show, brand new gentleman. Haven't met him before. We reached out, contacted via text and email. Andrew Baxter, head coach, Brentwood High School, and also Southside Prospects.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, no worries. I always love it when people reach out and say, let's talk baseball. That's what we do. Right? So
For sure.
Let's start with the Southside Prospects. I always like to start with the club ball, the youth side. You know, how long you been doing that?
So I've been doing club baseball, summer baseball for about 15 years now. I started with the Southwest Stars. Now I'm with the Southside Prospects based out of Afton down at Center St. Louis, which is a huge facility. You ever been there?
I don't think so. Well, wait, maybe do the recruits they used to work out? Is that the same spot?
No, I don't think so. It's right by Tower T. Everybody knows where Tower T is in St. Louis. It's right down the street from.
Guy, so.
Everybody knows, man. Come on.
Admonish.
Yeah, but no, we train out of Center St. Louis, and they've just been very good to me because that's about 10 minutes from my house. I live down in the city. They got a huge facility where it's 120 by 90 feet on the turf, and then they got about 6 cages and a pitching lane, so we can get a lot done. And it's got high ceilings where I can hit, almost legitimate fly balls there.
Really?
Too. So we get a lot of work in there throughout the winter. We actually just wrapped up last night our winter training, where now I'm kind of, in the Superman mode of changing uniforms, getting ready for the spring. And I'm excited to get outside. I know every player in the St. Louis area is ready to get outside too.
Absolutely. So how many teams you got down there with the Prospects?
So right now we have about 6 teams going, and that varies. We try to keep it small. I'm not trying to create a huge program or anything like that. Myself, Eric Rule, Andy Bennis, where we kind of keep a small pocket. We keep it quality. So we got 6 teams, and that ranges from 10U through 17U, and I coach the 17U team. So we're not even, we're not worried about us, however certain many teams we have. We just try to keep it quality, keep the coaches quality, and really focus on the training and development piece.
Absolutely. So, 17U. Do you have any of your kids that from high school playing for you, or is it just a mix of kids from everywhere?
Well, that would be against the rules there. So no, I don't. No, I don't.
I said that.
Yeah. No, we get a lot of guys from Kirkwood, Oakville, Lutheran South, Lindbergh. Those are kind of our big feeders out that way. And obviously, you get the smaller schools down south. But we kind of just take that pocket of 55 to 70 right there, and that's kind of where our kids come from there. So.
Sure. Who you got coming over this year on your team, on your 17U squad?
Well, 17U, we have Keaton Johns, who's our top arm, goes to Kirkwood High School. He's projected at where he has just really good rate, where he's going to be a big-time pitcher for us. Right now, we've already kind of started the recruiting process with him, where he has a lot of upside. He did ace pitching development this winter. His velo's shooting up, where I see him, consistently being in the mid-80s this summer.
So we should see him. We're going to be live streaming the Webster Groves Kirkwood game at Baldwin, so maybe we'll see him there.
Perfect. Funny thing about him is he's playing for my old high school coach. That's Scott Wiseman down there. I played for him back at Parkway West back in the day. But no, we got him. We have a guy by the name of Jack Wrinkle, who's a big lefty bat. We have Matt Sansone on the mound, who goes to Bayless, which is a smaller school. And I see him, every year we have to face him at Brentwood, obviously, where he's a top arm in that area. And, yeah, we just got a good quality group of guys, about 13 of them. We have Evan Wolf from Crystal City, and they're trying to three-peat districts this year.
Yeah.
He's their ace down there. So just a good group of guys who are ready to get after it this summer. But like I said, Brian, everybody's ready to get outside now. Everybody's sick of being indoors.
Yeah.
So.
It's that time, and especially when you got days like this, right? I mean, it's almost 70 degrees, and it's like, oh, it's time to play ball.
For sure.
So, let's talk Brentwood High School. Let's get to know you a little bit. We were talking before we started. A little bit of your background. You're a St. Louis guy. Where you evidently played at Parkway West.
Yes, sir. I've been all over, actually. I started coaching with the Stars when I was 19 under a guy by the name of Grayling Tobias, who used to be a superintendent, a big-time coach in the area. And he kind of sped along the process of my development as a coach, got my voice out there. And I was with the Stars for 12 years as a coach. And in that time, I went from assistant coach to head coach to director, or, I'd be the director for Slaba. And during that time, I was a journeyman as far as coaching goes. I was an assistant at Parkway West, my first year eligible with Misha. Then I went to JFK, if you remember John F. Kennedy High School before it closed. So I was an assistant there with Tony McNabb, who's now the head coach at St. Pius. And then after that, I went and got my first teaching job in Normandy, ended up being the head coach there for a year. Then went to Riverview Gardens, was the head coach there for 5 years. And then after that, ended up at Brentwood for the last 5 years, and I couldn't be happier.
There you go.
So.
Brentwood High School. It's a smaller school, Class 2. We were talking about that earlier. Last 5 years, how do you build a program in a small school?
So that's a great question. And it really comes back to the culture at Brentwood that I'm not even going to take credit for. Because the culture at Brentwood is, the older guys will always step up and help. And not just the older guys, the more experienced players. Because the unique thing about Brentwood is when you think of small schools, you think about schools that are an hour south of here, stuff like that. Brentwood's right in the middle of St. Louis.
Right.
And when you have a small school in the middle of St. Louis, you will have a handful of experienced players who have played at a very high level. And then the rest of your team might not be as experienced, but they're willing to learn. But the culture at Brentwood that I've been amazed with the past 5 years is you have those experienced players who are basically assistant coaches in themselves. They'll step up. They'll teach the other players certain things where they're willing to pitch in, where it's not just about them. They know it's about more than them. And they know that in order to be successful, they need to bring other players up to their level. And it works out culturally where when you do that, when every set of players knows that you care about them, they're going to listen to you in games, and it just filters all the way down. So just the culture of athletics at Brentwood in general has been, amazing to be a part of.
So you get a lot of guys that are, playing football, basketball, soccer, and having to, baseball may be a third, maybe even fourth sport in certain respects, right?
Exactly. And even like our top baseball players, like I had a kid last year named Ian Thornton. Ian's playing at Truman State right now for baseball. He scored over 1,000 points in basketball for Brentwood. So, that's kind of that's also another thing I like, the fact that we have kids who are playing 2 or 3 sports.
And in those smaller schools, you have to, because how many kids do you normally have come out for baseball?
Usually about 13 to 15.
Is that right?
Yes,
so
sir.
You just have a varsity squad?
Yep, just a varsity squad.
Yeah. So if you're a freshman,
you better be ready to roll. And we actually have a very good group of freshmen coming in right now. We have 5 really solid freshmen who have signed up. When I've met them, we've been doing camps where I kind of have gotten to know them over the years in camps and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Does it, do you think about, is there a way that you think, in a small setting like that with those schools, do you ever think about, can we get to 20 players? Can we get to 23? Is there, is that a thought process in that school?
It hasn't been. I think we always get to a point where we try to recruit more and more players by, making it fun, certain aspects, that'll attract certain athletes to come play. But at the end of the day, the numbers are what they are, where, a lot would have to change to kind of jump up that way, And also, too, at the smaller school level, I just hear, with the umpire shortage, that really affects the smaller schools, lower level teams, too,
Because
so
you guys are getting like one umpire.
Well, we'll have two umpires
You
for
have
varsity
two?
game. Yeah.
Okay.
But a lot of the coaches I talk to who carry a JV, they're having a hard time just because they're having to play, 3-inning games after varsity just to have umpires and stuff like that.
Wow.
So,
no kidding.
yes, sir.
Wow. I know the last year I umpired, I was with the GSL, and I did about 9 to 10 games by myself, junior varsity games by myself. And, it's not fun. Not because,
You just always got to be alert. You can't blink.
But it's tough because the coaches, and to their credit, every coach, it was tough because, he's like, I can't argue that. Right? And it's just tough because, you hustle, you do the best you can, but it's still, you're one guy on a big field. And if you've got some, I was doing some Class 6 schools, and some of these JV squads, pretty good. So you get out there and these kids fast moving, and you definitely got to be on your toes.
For sure.
It's a tough gig, man. So you're in the Southwest Central?
South Central, yes.
South Central,
Yep.
Excuse me, South Central.
All good.
And which contains Valley Park, Bayless, Maplewood, Crossroads College Prep, and it is just Crossroads.
Yeah, you go by Crossroads, but Crossroads College Prep.
And Hancock. So I know, and when I saw Valley Park there, I've been aware of them. Because I look at all the districts, so it's so many schools. It's hard. We do focus on a lot of the 4, 5, and 6. You get down into the 3, 2, 1. Man, there's so many schools. It just gets sometimes a little overwhelming, and I'm just one dude. So we're getting closer to getting some more people on so we can talk about schools a little bit better in that respect. So, because I always like it, but I always try to take a look. And Valley Park, of course, being around here, it jumped off the map at me. They're a solid school, right? In your conference.
Yes, sir. And Mike Menley does a great job with the program over at Valley Park, but as far as the coaches in our whole conference, all of us get along. There's no bad blood between all of us where,
no ugly rivalries.
No, but there are some traditional rivalries like, us and Maplewood, town to town, right next to each other like that, where that's kind of nice to see in this day and age. But just a great group of coaches to coach against every year. And, as far as other conferences I've been in, we make a point of making sure we play everybody twice. We don't reschedule.
Right.
Where we kind of prioritize conference games.
I like that because, we do a GAC game of the week. They do a home and home on Tuesday, Wednesday. How do you do your conference stuff that way?
Typically, we do that where it's Tuesday, Wednesday. We've tried other things in the past, but this has seemed to work pretty well because that frees up the rest of the week and weekends for things that we need to do. And then obviously, you have Bayless, that's turf. So sometimes, weather pending, we might move there. Valley Park's field drain's excellent. We might move there. And in the past, we've even, shared certain spots depending on, because we play at Brentwood Park, Maplewood plays at Deer Creek. We try to help each other out when we can to get the games in.
Sure. The interesting part of this, I always like to look at these scenarios. How many games do you schedule, Coach?
So usually we schedule about 20 games, and then it's a marathon sprint to get them in. I would say in my 5 years that I've been there, and we've had pretty normal springs, and I'm sure you've talked to other coaches about this. It seems like the schedule is ever evolving and always changing, I think it'd be a rarity to have your whole week go according as planned with the weather in the spring in St. Louis.
Right. And that's always because I asked that question because I think it's interesting as you watch as it moves down from class to class, because you can play up to 36 games with Misha, but that was why the question, because you don't have the guys to be able to play 36
Right.
games.
We can't play every day. The most we could probably play in a week is about 4 games with our pitching,
right,
with the pitch counts and everything like that.
And you got to watch, and it's just true to the arms of the kids, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We have some top arms that do a great job for us, but at the end of the day, 13 to 15 guys is very different than having a roster of 25 to 30 guys. I've heard some schools have like 8-man rotation, 10-man rotation, depending on the week.
Yeah, and that's true. We when we talked to Timberland, we just had a conversation with Coach Zaire. You're looking at Francis Howell, but even they get years where it gets a little thin, even at the Class 6 level with all the kids. It still isn't always that way, but you definitely have, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 kids deep where that's your whole roster.
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
And I think the dynamics of that are always interesting to me, and that sets in motion a great deal of coaching issues for you, doesn't it?
For sure. And it's just you have to be more creative.
Yeah.
Even how you move people around, like, let's say you got a rotation of 3 guys. Those 3 guys might be your best fielders where they got to play shortstop, center field, or catch when they're not playing those positions. A lot of kids, looking back on it, they'll finish, they'll graduate and they'll end up having played 7, 8 different positions for me throughout the years, which they have to do.
Right. Because next guy up, and you just got to move the guys.
Exactly. Right? And then if you have an injury, then you really have to get creative after that. The depth chart only goes so far, when you have a smaller roster. But at the end of the day, it's a great challenge too as a coach.
Absolutely. So, what district are you guys usually in?
Usually, we're Class 2, and it's changed the last couple years. I couldn't tell you the section off the top of my head, but last couple years we've been in with, Principia, first of all. They have a fabulous facility, I think. I could see them
that's
hosting
where
our
the Stars
districts.
used to play too, right?
Well, have you seen the field since they redid it?
No, I haven't.
It is the best draining field I've ever seen. That's grass in St. Louis, but I see them hosting districts for the foreseeable future. But usually we get guys, Valley down south, Valley, Caledonia, Christians randomly thrown in from out here. I don't know how they get thrown in with all the southern schools,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In O'Fallon?
Yes, sir.
No kidding.
Yeah, they get thrown in there. Valley Catholic, Crystal City's usually in the district too.
Wow.
And that's just changed the last couple of years where you see a lot more movement with districts with the smaller schools because you have to regroup it. Crossroads, they're Class 1, so they got to drive down to South Iron for their district game.
Really?
Yeah, it's the closest. There's no other Class 1 in St. Louis.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because, and Orrin, right?
Yeah.
And they ain't no joke.
Nope.
That team is serious about their baseball. They've been
sure.
in. I know, and I found out because as we've been covering the state championships over the last 4 or 5 years, I mispronounced the name of the town, and I was quickly,
They came after you, didn't they?
It wasn't mean. It wasn't anything like that. But they made sure that you said it right, and that's okay. I'm all for that. But they do have a good baseball team down there.
For sure.
So I'm hoping as we go through this, we can get. I want to see what they've got. They're right there. Aren't they just a little south of Cape?
I believe so.
That area, yeah. So if Crossroads, man, that's a long drive.
Oh yeah, it's all over the state.
Yeah,
it really is.
And that's what's tough with some of the smaller schools. You're fortunate to be in Class 2. And what is the Class 2? What is your enrollment? Do you know off the top of your head or
off
close
the top
to
of my
it?
head? I don't want to say it's right around 300 usually for the high school.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's not, and I always think of things when I hear numbers like that. I always start thinking of, well, usually the ladies outnumber the men statistically. So if you got 300, it's usually not half and half.
Right.
And you got three classes or four.
Four.
So it's freshmen through, right? So, if you're at maybe 125 students, male students over 40, that's not a lot.
Right. Yeah.
That's tough,
and then you
man.
have other sports too where,
Right.
it's a good thing that they want to run track, I've had guys who do both track and baseball. Where
That's
you just kind of have
difficult,
to.
too.
It is, but the track coach is a good guy where we've always worked together on that and worked with the athletic department. Steve Ayod does a phenomenal job kind of, making sure things don't overlap with the scheduling and stuff like that.
One of the better athletes in the state, Jackson Carter, over at Fort Zumwalt East. Last year, first year he did it, played baseball and ran track. Class 5 school, which I think is they're playing a lot more games, so it's a little more of a bout. But I love what the coaches did, got together, worked it out, and he's going to do it. And he's going to UCM for baseball and track because he is fast.
That's awesome.
And I think he said, I'm not gonna speak about it because I'm gonna say it wrong. I'll try and say it next time. But I think he set a record for the state in the 100 meters somewhere. I don't know if it was a school record or if it was a state record. I would have to check that again. But, you're still seeing that in high school period at whatever level. And I think that's good because you got some tremendous athletes. And, in high school, you don't want to go, no, I ain't going to do that. Right?
Right.
So I think it's cool. I like what they do with that. So it's a lot of fun.
For sure. And my field's off campus, so track. So I'll tell them, my first year there, I was like, we're going to start at 3:30 because they're a late school. They get out at like 3:05. We're going to start at 3:30. And my first couple weeks there, you got kids running down the hill, putting a cleat on and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? Then the following year, I'm like, we'll back it up to 4:00. So in doing so, you got the track runners who will be like, at school, I'm going to get my work in, then I'm going to come to baseball. Never been an issue, never been late or anything like that. So it's worked out perfect.
So what's your prospects this year for the team, Coach? How you feel about them?
I feel great about them. Last year, we were kind of coming off a rebuilding year. We had a really strong class of sophomores where it was kind of their first year actually playing on varsity with a lot of learning curves and stuff like that. Where they kind of hung together, gained a lot of experience, and we were a much improved team where you saw a lot of growth. And that speaks largely to my coaching staff. I got Coach Mike Immergut, who's been at Brentwood for over 28 years as an assistant coach, and you might have ran into him with basketball. He ref basketball for 50 years, so he's an old classic. I got Steve Sadler, who did a phenomenal job. We didn't have a catcher last year, and he just trained guy named Abel Kurd, who had some experience catching, but the amount of growth and improvement he showed working with Sadler was unreal. So we got those guys coming back. We have a senior named Trenton Mitchell, who's as good a leader as any. He had a big year for the Brentwood Clayton football team, where he's just a competitor on the field, tremendous athlete. And our junior class, that sophomore class coming up, we got Jackson Kurd, who's our starting shortstop, hit I think 327 last year, where you've seen his numbers climb every year, where he's just gotten stronger and faster. And he just works. He's a hard worker, and he's a leader for us, where he'll always be working with the other players in the program. And then on the bump, every small school team has a guy. Everybody has at least one guy. Yeah. And our guy's name is Ryan Potts. And he's, if you look back at, the Tigers Scout Day, Rawlings Tigers. And that's a great program over there as well. If you actually look at all the pitchers, you cannot convince me otherwise that he has the best mechanics out of anybody featured in that showcase there, where he just throws. I've never seen him hit hard. He keep in mind we only got 18 games in last year. He threw over 37 innings through all our big games. We schedule larger teams to get games in sometimes. We play Oakville every year.
Oh, wow.
He threw against them back-to-back years and kept it close where he just never gets hit hard. He throws kind of a heavy ball, good curveball slider. He usually touches about 80, but his other pitches, he's just deceiving, and nobody can really hit him.
That's awesome. Oakville's for real, too, boy.
Yeah. And everybody in our conference had a guy, too. He had a big game. His breakout game last year was against Hancock, where he threw like a 1-0 shutout to kind of seal the deal there against the top pitcher in our conference at the time. So I'm interested to see what he can do as a junior as well.
Very good. 20 games, you think you're going to exceed your win total from last year?
Absolutely, no question about it. I think we're going to make a run, especially with the freshmen that we have coming in.
I like it. I love the count. Yeah, baby.
Yep.
Give me some. I want to see it.
I may need to come back and be like, I told you so.
I told you
a couple
so.
months. Yeah. Since I'm a teacher, I'll have a lot of free time in the summer.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, we definitely text, keep in touch through the season. It gives us an opportunity to see these teams and what's going on in other parts. We appreciate that, Coach, very much, because I don't want to leave those schools out. It's not that, but it's a lot of schools.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And so I'm looking forward to it. It's a tough conference. Valley Park, like I said, Bayless there, Brentwood, Maplewood, Crossroad, and Hancock, folks. If you're interested in some baseball, look, all you Brentwood students, get out there and support your kids. Support the squad.
We get great support from the student body.
Do you?
Yeah, we get good attendance at our games. We actually have lights on our field where night games we usually get a good turnout of the student body.
There you go. I love it. So the community's behind it. That's great stuff. Baseball's free, right?
Absolutely.
Go watch a game. Coach, Andrew Baxter, folks, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Appreciate it.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Please, if you like what we're doing, right there or below there is the subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the dinger next to it, because that's what we do around here. We hit dingers, Coach.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I like it. And so that will get you all your notifications for upcoming episodes such as this. We appreciate you tuning in. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes. Hitters, you got some advice for hitters, Coach?
You better be swinging daily.
It's good advice. We'll see y'all next time.